The massive space station called Nexus Prime hung in the darkness between stars like a jewel made of metal and light. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports, bringing creatures that looked nothing like each other to one central meeting place. Today was special because the Galactic Council would decide if humans could join their group. Commander Jake Harrison walked through the long hallways of the station with his team. Chief Engineer Lisa Murphy carried a small device that recorded everything they saw, while Diplomatic Advisor Alex Turner held a briefcase full of papers about human achievements. Jake had been chosen to speak, for all humans because he was calm under pressure and could think fast when things went wrong. The council chamber was huge with seats, arranged in circles that went up toward a high ceiling. Each seat was made for a different type of alien body. Some creatures needed water tanks while others sat on platforms of heated rock. The air smelled strange because it was mixed to let all these different beings breathe at the same time. Jake and his team took their places at the center of the room. Around them sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Zephyrian ambassador named Veltar was tall and looked like he was made of living crystal that changed colors when he moved. His people could control energy with their minds and thought they were better than everyone else. The Nautolan representative called Kreshwa lived in a tank of blue water and spoke through a machine that turned her thoughts into words. Her species had conquered the oceans of 50 worlds and built cities under the waves. They were proud of their weapons that shot streams of superheated plasma. But the most frightening member was High Counselor Thace from the Arachnoid Collective. She had 8 legs and 8 eyes that could look in different directions at the same time. Her people shared one mind across their entire species and could not understand why humans wanted to think for themselves. Jake stood up and began to speak. He told them about human cities that reached toward the sky and ships that could travel between planets. He showed them pictures of human art and music and explained how humans had learned to work together, despite being different from each other. He talked about human science and the machines they had built to make life better for everyone. Lisa stepped forward and displayed holographic images of human technology. She showed them fusion reactors that powered entire cities and medical machines that could heal almost any injury. She explained how humans had learned to grow food in space and build homes on worlds where nothing had lived before. Alex presented documents that proved humans could keep agreements and work with other species peacefully. He showed records of trade deals and scientific exchanges that had helped both humans and aliens learn new things. He spoke about human laws that protected the weak and gave everyone a chance to improve their lives. When the human presentation ended, the aliens began to respond. Feltar spoke first, and his crystal body flashed with colors that meant displeasure. He said human weapons were too simple because they shot metal bullets instead of using pure energy. He called human engines primitive because they burned fuel instead of bending. Space and Time, Kreshwa agreed with the crystal being and said humans were too violent because they fought wars with explosions and fire. She thought it was crude that humans still used machines with moving parts when advanced species could make things happen just by thinking about them. High Counselor Thys was the harshest critic of all. Her 8 eyes focused on Jake as she listed everything she thought was wrong with humans. She said they had no telepathic abilities and could not share thoughts the way proper species should. She called their individual thinking a weakness because it led to disagreement and conflict. The spider-like creature continued her attack by saying humans formed emotional bonds with each other that clouded their judgment. She thought it was barbaric that humans cared about family members and friends more than the good of the whole group. She said their pack bonding instincts were a sign that they had not evolved beyond animal behavior. Jake tried to defend his species by explaining that human diversity made them stronger. He said that when humans disagreed with each other, they found better solutions to problems. He argued that human emotions like love and loyalty gave them the strength to protect what mattered to them. But the council had already made up their minds. One by one, each species voted against allowing humans to join. The crystal beings voted no because humans were too primitive. The water dwellers voted no because humans were too aggressive. The spider creatures voted no because humans were too individual. The final vote was announced by a mechanical voice that echoed through the chamber. Species designation, Homo sapiens. Status primitive. Council membership, denied indefinitely. The words hit Jake like physical blows, but he kept his face calm and nodded politely. As the human delegation prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Lisa's recording device picked up something interesting. She had modified it to listen to alien communication frequencies, and now it was hearing things the aliens thought were private. Beltar was talking to other council members about what they called the human problem. The crystal being said that humans controlled a solar system that sat at an important crossroads between different parts of the galaxy. He thought it was dangerous to let them remain independent because they might interfere with council plans. Other aliens agreed and began discussing something they called a compliance action. Jake realized they were planning to attack Earth. The council had not just rejected humanity's application for membership. They had decided that humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated or controlled. The meeting had been a trap to learn about human capabilities while the aliens planned their war. The human ship left Nexus Prime quietly, but inside, Jake was making plans. Lisa had managed to scan many alien technologies during their visit, and Alex had recorded every word the council members said. They might consider humans primitive, but they were about to learn that primitive did not mean helpless. As their ship headed back toward Earth, Jake sent a coded message ahead. It was time for humanity to prepare for the fight of their lives. The galaxy had rejected them as members, but soon they would demand respect as equals. The council thought humans were too primitive to matter, but they were about to discover what primitives could do when their home was threatened. 6 months had passed since Jake Harrison brought the bad news back to Earth. Deep underground in the mountains of Colorado, General Patricia Collins stood in front of screens that showed the largest military buildup in human history. Factories that once made cars now produced weapons. Shipyards that built cargo vessels now created warships. Every human settlement from Earth to the outer colonies was preparing for war. Patricia coordinated with Fleet Admiral Ryan Burke, who commanded the human space navy from Luna Station on the Moon. The Moon had been hollowed out and turned into a fortress with weapons pointed toward the stars. Giant railguns that could throw metal slugs at incredible speeds were hidden inside what looked like normal mining equipment. Intelligence reports came in daily from human spies scattered across known space. Captain Nicole Davis worked undercover on Kepler Station, a busy trading post where ships from many worlds came to buy and sell goods. She pretended to be a simple merchant while she watched alien military ships gathering in numbers that made her nervous. Nicole sent coded messages hidden in normal business communications. She reported that Zephyrian warships were loading unusual amounts of supplies, and that their crystal crews seemed excited about something big coming. Nautilin vessels arrived daily carrying troops in specialized water-filled compartments. Even the peaceful trader species were talking about a major operation that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. Dr. Benjamin Clark had an even more dangerous job. He worked as a xenobiologist on Proxima University, an academic world where alien scientists shared knowledge. For months he had studied alien anatomy and physiology, while pretending to be interested only in science, but lately his alien colleagues had become distant and secretive. The spider-like arachnoids who had once shared their research freely now whispered among themselves in their clicking language. The crystal Zephyrians no longer invited him to their energy manipulation demonstrations. Even the water-dwelling Nautilins, who had seemed friendly, now avoided his questions about their homeworld's military capabilities. Benjamin realized that someone had told the academic community to stop sharing information with humans. This could only mean one thing: the Galactic Council was preparing for war, and they did not want humans to learn anything that might help them fight back. The truth became clear when long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Burke was in his command center on Luna Station when the alarms began to sound. Technician Gary Wilson was the first to spot them on his screen. 300 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace near the orbit of Pluto. The alien fleet was massive and organized in perfect formation. The Zephyrian dreadnought Luminous Destiny led the group with its crystal hull reflecting starlight like a weapon made of precious stones. Behind it came ships from a dozen different species, each one designed to fight in their own unique way. Admiral Veltar's voice filled communication channels across the solar system as he broadcast his demands. The message was translated into every human language and sent to every settlement. He spoke as if humans were children who needed to be taught a lesson by their betters. The crystal being demanded complete surrender within 72 hours. All human weapons must be destroyed and all military forces disbanded. The population of Earth would be relocated to worlds chosen by the Council where they could be properly supervised. Earth itself would become a mining colony operated by council species who knew how to use its resources efficiently. Veltar explained that this was for humanity's own good. Humans were too primitive to govern themselves and too dangerous to be left alone. The council would teach them how to behave properly, and maybe someday they could earn the right to limited self-government under alien supervision. When the message ended, President Maria Rodriguez prepared to address the world. She stood in the Global Defense Council chambers where leaders from every nation had gathered. Her words would be broadcast to every human settlement in space and recorded for history. Maria spoke clearly and calmly even though her heart was racing. She told the world that aliens had come to take away their freedom and turn Earth into a slave colony. She said that humans had a choice: fight for their independence or spend the rest of their lives as prisoners on alien worlds. The president reminded everyone that humans had been preparing for this moment. The weapons they called primitive had been scaled up into massive defense systems. The moon was ready to fight. The asteroid belt had been turned into a minefield. Most importantly, every human civilian had been trained to resist occupation. She ended her speech with words that became famous across the galaxy. They called us primitive because we choose bullets over beams, because we value individual thought over hive minds, because we fight with determination instead of cold calculation. Today we show them what primitive really means. Captain Steve Martin received his orders aboard the heavy cruiser New Frontier. His ship was one of 50 vessels that made up humanity's main battle fleet. They were outnumbered 6-1, but that did not matter. Human ships had been designed to fight against superior numbers using tactics that aliens would not expect. The countdown began as the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system. Admiral Burke coordinated the defense from his flagship Indomitable, while Patricia Collins prepared ground-based weapons for the battle to come. Every human settlement activated its hidden defenses and prepared to fight. Children were moved to the deepest shelters while adults took their positions at weapons that had been disguised as mining equipment or communication arrays. Farmers became soldiers and teachers became resistance fighters. The entire human species prepared to prove that primitive did not mean weak. As the alien fleet passed Neptune, human scouts reported their formation and capabilities. The enemy had overwhelming firepower and advanced shields that could stop energy weapons. Their ships moved in perfect coordination as if controlled by a single mind. Everything about them screamed superiority and confidence, but hidden among the asteroids and moons of the outer solar system, human forces waited patiently. Admiral Burke's strategy was simple: let the aliens think they were winning until it was too late to retreat. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had spent 6 months preparing the greatest surprise in military history. The last message sent from Earth to human colonies was short and direct. Make them remember why Earth breeds warriors. In space stations and settlements across known space, humans prepared to show the galaxy that primitive species could fight back when their survival was at stake. The first shots of the war were fired when the alien fleet crossed Neptune's orbit. Admiral Veltar expected his overwhelming force to crush human resistance within hours. His crystal ships had shields that could stop any energy weapon, and his allies brought firepower that had conquered dozens of worlds. What they did not expect was the human way of fighting. Captain Danny Wells commanded the stealth frigate Silent Hunter, as it drifted in the shadow of Neptune's largest moon. His ship was one of 12 vessels hiding in the outer system using tactics borrowed from ancient submarine warfare. When the alien fleet passed by, Danny gave the order that started humanity's desperate fight for survival. The human ships emerged from their hiding places like sharks attacking from the deep. Their weapons were simple railguns that shot tungsten rods at tremendous speed. The aliens had designed their shields to deflect sophisticated energy beams, but nobody had thought about what would happen when something solid hit them fast. Enough. The tungsten projectiles punched through alien shields like bullets through paper. Crystal hulls shattered and metal armor cracked as the primitive human weapons proved devastatingly effective. 3 Zephyrian cruisers exploded in the first 30 seconds as their energy cores were breached by flying metal. Admiral Burke watched the battle from his flagship Indomitable while coordinating the defense of the inner system. His strategy relied on humanity's greatest advantage over the aliens: the ability to think quickly and change plans when something unexpected happened. Alien warfare followed rigid patterns that Could be predicted, but human tactics embraced chaos. The alien fleet tried to respond with their own weapons, but the human ships had already disappeared back into the shadows. Veltar ordered his forces to pursue, but found himself chasing ghosts that appeared and vanished among the moons and ice chunks of the outer planets. Every time his ships thought they had found the humans, more tungsten rods came flying out of the darkness. Commander Kelly Foster led a squadron of converted mining ships through the asteroid belt, where human engineers had spent months preparing surprises. Her vessels looked like simple cargo haulers, but they carried the most dangerous weapons in human history. Asteroids that had been hollowed out and filled with explosives. When the alien vanguard entered the belt, Kelly triggered the first surprise. What looked like a normal asteroid suddenly exploded outward in a carefully timed sequence that created a wall of debris moving at orbital velocity. The alien ships flew straight into the trap and were torn apart by chunks of rock traveling faster than bullets. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their computer systems were designed to avoid natural hazards like meteors, but they could not calculate the trajectory of an entire asteroid field that had been weaponized. Ship after ship was damaged or destroyed as they tried to navigate through debris that seemed to attack them deliberately. Veltar realized that humans were using the solar system itself as a weapon. Every moon and asteroid had been turned into a potential threat. The primitive species was fighting like a cornered animal that would use anything available to defend its territory. This was not the clean, technological warfare that civilized species practiced. The battle reached its climax when the Zephyrian command ship Luminous Destiny broke through the outer defenses and headed straight for Earth. The massive dreadnought was 10 times larger than any human vessel, and its crystal hull glowed with barely contained energy. Veltar was confident that nothing could stop his flagship from reaching the human homeworld. Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded the aging destroyer Defiant as it limped toward the alien dreadnought. His ship had been built 20 years ago and was considered obsolete by human standards. Half his weapons were offline, and his hull was cracked from multiple hits. His crew of 38 had been reduced to 22 able-bodied fighters. But Tony had something that Veltar could not understand: the willingness to sacrifice everything for his species' survival. When it became clear that conventional weapons could not stop the dreadnought, Tony made a decision that would echo through galactic history. He ordered his crew to abandon ship while he set course for a ramming attack. The Defiant accelerated toward the Luminous Destiny at maximum speed. Veltar's crew tried to destroy the tiny human ship, but their targeting systems were designed for long-range combat against vessels that tried to avoid being hit. They could not lock onto something that was deliberately flying straight at them. The collision did not destroy the alien dreadnought, but it did something more important. It damaged the ship's long-range communication array. For the first time in the battle, the alien fleet lost its perfect coordination. Individual ships began making their own decisions instead of following commands from a central authority. This was exactly what Admiral Burke had been waiting for. Human forces had been trained to fight as independent units that could adapt to changing situations. When alien coordination broke down, human adaptability became a decisive advantage. Small groups of human ships began attacking isolated alien vessels that could no longer call for help. The tide of battle started to turn as human. Commanders like Captain Frank Miller and Lieutenant Commander Susan Baker led their crews in desperate attacks against superior numbers. They used every dirty trick that humans had learned in thousands of years of warfare: ambushes, feints, false retreats, and suicide charges that forced aliens to make split-second decisions. The aliens discovered that fighting humans was like trying to catch smoke with their bare hands. Every time they thought they understood human tactics, the humans did something completely different. Ships that should have retreated instead charged forward. Vessels that appeared damaged suddenly revealed hidden weapons. What looked like a defeat turned into a trap. As the first day of fighting ended, both fleets had taken heavy losses. The aliens still had superior numbers and technology, but their confidence was shaken. They had expected to face a primitive species that would surrender quickly when confronted by advanced weapons. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable rules. Admiral Veltar studied the battle reports in his damaged command center and realized that his perfect plan was falling apart. Humans did not fight the way civilized species were supposed to fight. They used crude weapons and desperate tactics that no proper military academy would teach. They seemed to enjoy chaos and actually fought better when everything was going wrong. The crystal being began to understand why the Galactic Council had wanted to eliminate humanity before they became a real threat. These primitives were dangerous not because of their technology, but because of their refusal to behave predictably. They fought like wild animals that would rather die free than live as slaves. But the war was far from over. The alien fleet still had enough firepower to destroy every human settlement in the solar system. Tomorrow would bring new battles, and humanity would need every advantage they could find. In the darkness between worlds, both sides prepared for the fight that would determine the future of human civilization. 3 days into the battle, the true scope of human preparation became clear. What the aliens had dismissed as primitive technology revealed itself as carefully disguised innovation that had been hidden in plain sight. Every mining operation and research station had been secretly converted into a weapon of war. Dr. Amanda Price worked from a hidden laboratory deep inside Mars, where human scientists had spent months studying alien technology. Her team had been analyzing every piece of alien equipment they could find, from broken communication devices to damaged weapon fragments recovered from previous encounters. Amanda activated humanity's secret weapon, a network of quantum communication satellites that had been disguised as weather monitoring stations. The aliens could jam normal radio signals, but they had no way to interfere with quantum entanglement communication that worked faster than light and could not be intercepted. This discovery changed everything. Human forces across the solar system could now coordinate their attacks in real time, while the alien fleet was still struggling with damaged communication arrays. Admiral Burke suddenly had the ability to move his ships like pieces on a chessboard, while his enemies were flying blind. Lieutenant Commander Craig Thompson led a squadron of converted mining vessels toward a group of Nautolan warships that were trying to establish a forward base on one of Jupiter's moons. His ships looked like harmless cargo haulers, but they carried weapons that had been designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in alien technology. During the months of preparation, human engineers had discovered that Nautolan ships used a special type of hull material that was incredibly strong, but had one fatal flaw. It became brittle when exposed to certain frequencies of vibration. Craig's ships carried sonic weapons that could make enemy hulls crack like eggshells. The attack was devastating. The proud Nautolan vessels that had conquered the oceans of 50 worlds found themselves unable to withstand weapons that used sound as a projectile. Their water-filled compartments burst open in the vacuum of space, and their crews died, gasping for the liquid they needed to breathe. On Europa, Colonel Diana Martinez commanded a regiment of Marines defending the ice mining facilities that supplied water to human settlements throughout the system. The Arachnoid Collective had sent their best troops to capture the moon because they thought it would be an easy target, defended by civilian workers. The spider-like aliens dropped from their ships in specialized pods designed to punch through ice and establish a foothold on the surface. They expected to find frightened miners who would surrender without a fight. Instead, they encountered humanity's most primitive and effective weapon, improvised explosive devices hidden throughout the facility. Diana's troops had spent weeks turning every corridor and chamber into a death trap. The aliens, who were used to fighting with honor and precision, found themselves facing an enemy that booby-trapped everything and fought from every shadow. Explosive charges hidden in walls and floors turned the mining complex into a maze of deadly surprises. The Arachnoid soldiers tried to use their shared consciousness to coordinate their assault, but human defenders used this against them. When one alien discovered a trap, all of them knew about it instantly. This should have been an advantage, but Diana's Marines had planned for it by creating false traps that wasted alien time and real traps that were triggered when the aliens thought they were safe. The psychological impact on the alien coalition became evident during a crucial engagement near Jupiter, where the two fleets met in open space for the first major battle since the war began. Commander Sandra Taylor led a combined force of human warships and converted civilian vessels against a Nautolan battle group that outnumbered her 3-1, the aliens. Expected the civilian ships to flee when the fighting started, but instead they found themselves attacked by teachers, miners, engineers, and farmers who handled military-grade weapons with the same competence they used in their daily work. A schoolteacher named Betty Johnson commanded a converted passenger liner that carried enough firepower to destroy a city. The civilians fought with a desperate fury that shocked their alien opponents. These were not professional soldiers trained from birth to follow orders without question. These were ordinary people defending their homes and families, with weapons they had learned to use in just a few months of training. Captain Larry Johnson led the science vessel, discovery and a breakthrough that changed the entire character of the war. His team of researchers had been working around the clock to reverse engineer alien shield technology, but instead of simply copying it, they found a way to turn it against itself. Human missiles now carried devices that created harmonic disruptions in alien energy shields. The sophisticated defensive systems that had protected alien ships for centuries suddenly became useless against weapons that phased through them like they were not even there. Ships that had seemed invincible became sitting targets for human artillery. The discovery spread through the human fleet within hours, thanks to the quantum communication network. Every human ship began modifying its weapons to exploit the shield vulnerability. The aliens watched in horror as their most advanced defensive technology became worse than useless. Admiral Veltar realized that his carefully planned invasion was turning into a disaster. The Galactic Council's forces were designed to fight other advanced civilizations that followed predictable patterns of warfare. Humans fought like cornered animals, and cornered animals were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. The Crystal being tried to rally his forces by reminding them of their technological superiority. But the facts spoke for themselves. Human weapons were crude but effective. Human tactics were chaotic but successful. Human soldiers were primitive but absolutely determined to win at any cost. As the fourth day of battle dawned, long-range sensors detected something that sent chills through the alien command staff. Human reinforcements were arriving from the outer colonies in a massive convoy led by ships that the Galactic Council had not even known existed. The convoy included vessels from mining, operations in distant asteroid fields, research stations in empty space, and colony ships that had been traveling for years to reach new worlds. Every human settlement in known space was sending whatever they could to defend Earth and the solar system. Captain Gary Anderson commanded the converted heavy freighter Iron Will as it led the reinforcement convoy toward the battle zone. His ship had been carrying supplies to a new colony when the war started, but now it bristled with weapons and carried a crew of volunteers who had never seen combat before. The sight of hundreds of additional human ships arriving from deep space had a devastating effect on alien morale. The Council had thought they were fighting a single, primitive world, but they were actually facing an entire species that had spread farther through the galaxy than anyone realized. The primitive humans were about to demonstrate the power of unity forged in adversity. Every ship in the convoy carried people who had left Earth years ago to build new lives among the stars, but had returned home when their species needed them most. They had come to fight not for conquest or glory, but for the simple right to exist as free beings. Admiral Burke prepared to implement the final phase of humanity's defensive plan. The aliens still had superior technology and numbers, but they no longer had the confidence that had carried them into the solar system. It was time to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when their backs were against the wall, and their survival was at stake. The final phase of the battle began when Captain Gary Anderson's reinforcement convoy arrived in Earth orbit, carrying every human who could hold a weapon. Ships that had been traveling between distant colonies for months turned around and came home to fight. Mining vessels from asteroid belts that the aliens did not even know existed brought crews who had volunteered to die for their species. Freedom. General Patricia Collins implemented the last part of humanity's defensive plan from her command center deep underground. Operation Primitive Fury would use every ship in the human fleet from mighty battleships to tiny fighters in a coordinated assault on the alien coalition's command structure. The attack would use a tactic so simple that sophisticated alien computers could not predict it. Overwhelming firepower concentrated on a single target. Admiral Burke gave the order, and 300 human ships charged toward the center of the alien formation where Admiral Veltar's flagship still tried to coordinate the invasion. The luminous Destiny was surrounded by the most powerful vessels in the Galactic Council. Fleet but human forces attacked from every direction at once using weapons that should not have worked against superior technology. Captain Barry Lee commanded the destroyer, relentless as it led a suicide squadron directly at the arachnoid flagship Web of Thorns. His transmission to the fleet became legendary among humans throughout the galaxy, as he spoke the words that defined their species' refusal to surrender. They wanted to see primitives, so let's show them how primitives fight when their home is threatened. The destroyer squadron crashed into the alien formation like a hammer hitting glass. Human ships exploded against alien shields but kept coming, until the defensive barriers collapsed under the sheer weight of the assault. Barry's ship rammed straight into the web of thorns, and both vessels disappeared in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth. But the turning point of the war came, not from military action but from an unexpected discovery made by Dr. Helen Roberts, a xenopsychologist who had been studying alien communications throughout the battle. She had been listening to intercepted transmissions between different species in the alien fleet and noticed something important. Helen realized that the Galactic Council's coalition was held together by strict commands from above and fear of punishment for failure. The different alien species did not actually like each other very much, and were only working together because their leaders told them they had to. This gave her an idea for a weapon more powerful than any gun. Working with the quantum communication network, human forces began broadcasting the intercepted alien communications that revealed the true casualties and costs of the war. For the first time, individual alien ships learned that their high command had been lying about human capabilities and the progress of the battle. The psychological warfare proved more devastating than any physical weapon. Species that had joined the coalition expecting easy victory began to question their leaders when they learned how many of their people had already died. The proud Nautilians discovered that they had lost half their fleet. The Crystal Zephyrians found out that their energy shields were useless against human weapons. Commander Lisa Murphy used her engineering skills to hack into alien communication systems and broadcast fake orders that created confusion in their ranks. Ships received contradictory commands from different sources and began arguing among themselves about what they were supposed to do. The perfect coordination that had been the aliens' greatest strength dissolved into chaos. The first species to break ranks was the Nautilan contingent under Admiral Kreshwa. Her water-dwelling people had suffered terrible losses in their specialized assault formations, and she could no longer justify the casualties to her government. The Nautilan ships began withdrawing from the battle despite orders from Veltar to continue fighting. This started a cascade of defections, as other species realized they were fighting a war they could not win, for goals they did not fully understand. The peaceful trader species had only joined because they were afraid of the Council, but now they were more afraid of human weapons that could punch through any defense. The final confrontation came when Admiral Burke surrounded the remaining alien forces in Earth orbit with the combined human fleet. Instead of destroying them completely, he offered terms that shocked observers throughout the galaxy. Safe passage home in exchange for a message to the Galactic Council. Admiral Veltar found his crystal body damaged and his fleet scattered as he faced the primitive humans he had dismissed so arrogantly just days before. Commander Jake Harrison, now commanding the new Earth flagship Determination, delivered humanity's response to the Council's ultimatum with words that would reshape galactic politics. Jake's message was broadcast across known space so that every species could hear it clearly. You called us primitive because we think differently, fight differently, and refuse to conform to your standards. You were right about one thing. We are primitive. We are primitive enough to fight for our freedom, primitive enough to die for our principles, and primitive enough to forge our own path among the stars. He continued speaking as alien ships limped away from Sol carrying news of their defeat. The Galactic Council is welcome to try again, but remember this day when you do. Remember that primitives can fight back when you threaten what they love. Remember that different does not mean inferior, and that simple weapons in determined hands can defeat the most advanced technology. As the battered alien fleet retreated toward their home worlds, long-range communications began carrying word of humanity's impossible victory across the galaxy. The species that had been deemed too primitive for Council membership had just defeated the combined forces of 12 advanced civilizations using tactics that no military academy taught. 6 months later, the Galactic Council met again in the same chamber where they had rejected humanity's application for membership. But the mood was very different now. The confident dismissals of human capabilities had been replaced by fearful debates about the primitive species that had upset the balance of galactic power. A new proposal was before the council: immediate acceptance of humanity as a full member, with all the rights and privileges that membership entailed. The vote was unanimous, but the motivation was no longer respect or admiration. It was fear of what might happen if they made the humans angry again. Captain Jake Harrison returned to Nexus Prime as humanity's first galactic ambassador, but his message was not what the council expected to hear. He addressed the assembled aliens with words that would define human policy for generations to come and establish them as an independent power among the stars. We appreciate the invitation, but we have decided to chart our own course. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, but humanity will not be ruled by committee. We will trade with those who respect us, defend those who need protection, and fight anyone who threatens our freedom or the freedom of others. The human ships departed Nexus Prime not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as representatives of an independent power that had earned its place among the stars through blood and determination. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about underestimating those they considered primitive, and about the danger of judging others by their own standards. In the years that followed, young alien students across the galaxy began studying a new subject in their military academies: human tactical doctrine. The first lesson in every curriculum contained the same warning that their teachers repeated until every student knew it by heart. Never mistake different for inferior, and never assume that primitive means weak. The humans had proven that sometimes what appears primitive is actually refined simplicity, and that the greatest strength comes from refusing to conform to others' expectations. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for, and that those who tried to take it away would face consequences they never expected from a species they thought they understood.